Hi, Denise. So the first question is, Court Square in Long Island City has seen significant residential development, with thousands of new residents and large buildings continuing to be built. Although the city has tried to balance the development by promising Queens Public Library to reopen the closed library branch and budgeting money for the new elementary school, there really hasn't been any progress or updates from the SCA or Queens Public Library on the new school or reopening the library branch. As the council member that represents the neighborhood, what steps can you do to prevent these scenarios from occurring in the future? And now that we are in the current situation, what steps can you do to ensure that the city actually delivers its promise for the new school and reopening the library?
Okay, well, I think it's a case of learning from our mistakes. Okay, so for many years, I believe that the city planning didn't really understand the full potential of the area and didn't zone it accordingly. There are a number of rezonings in that area to stimulate activity and development. Initially, it was meant to be all commercial about 10, 12 years ago, when that didn't really create a lot of activity, they decided to move it to residential. Unfortunately, the city did not create the infrastructure to keep up with that. They didn't look at schools, they didn't look at families moving into the area because, as you well know, it's primarily commercial. So I think the lesson learned in that is that when creating new rezonings or looking at development for specific neighborhoods, that we're looking at all aspects of livelihood. We're looking at schools and residential, doctors, medical facilities are severely lacking in our district. And that's something that we need to consider. We need to have better planning, etc. Once I'm elected to city council, I think the way that we do that, especially with SCA, and I will say too, because I've worked with them closely in the past in trying to acquire new schools for the children of the district, is they seriously look at anything that's presented to them for, if it is it feasible, is it safe, are the conditions of the building appropriate to have children in there every day? And so I think what's happening right now is the Court Square Civic, which was in the City Court, former City Court building, there was no planning done to what would happen if City Court decided that they were going to close it. I think it was a 20-year agreement that they would be able to house the library in their building. So why weren't steps taken by the Queensborough Library from the former city council person to enable them to find another location? And then I remember it was kind of the scramble at the last minute, what are we going to do because City Corp is closing its facilities. So I think planning, in my opinion, is the key. Once you plan, you have to execute it to be beneficial to the area. So that's basically what I would say. I would say planning, better execution, thought process. Right now SCA has been delayed, I believe, in their projects due to COVID-19, which is understandable. But it's absolutely critical that we get our kids into 3K and now there's a new term, I think it's called all K or something like that. You start kids as low as 2 years old, getting them into educational facilities. And that only helps them grow and learn. My husband is a teacher. He's a special ed high school teacher in Long Island City, right across the street from LaGuardia College. It's called Middle College High School. And he is a strong proponent of starting education as young as possible, because when you get kids at a young age, you help them to grow even earlier.
Great. No, thank you so much. The second question is, District 26 is made of diverse neighborhoods that are oftentimes pretty segregated. Today families in one neighborhood can live, eat, work, and send their kids to different schools than other families in the district. Since these communities often don't intersect, you end up with perspectives from one neighborhood describing Long Island City as filled with ghost towers, and another perspective with describing Long Island City as overcrowded with a lack of school seats, public space, sewage. As the elected official representing the overall district, How do you reconcile these perspectives and different communities to ensure better connectivity, but also just better overall representation for the district?
Well, you know, Frank, I find that interesting because, you know, I grew up here. I was born and raised in Woodside and familiar with Woodside, Sunnyside, and Long Island City. And Long Island City, as you well know, is the fastest growing neighborhood in the country. But it was my understanding that Long Island City was basically a mosaic. You know, that you have people from all different backgrounds. I mean, historically, Woodside and Sunnyside were you know, Irish, Italian, German, Jewish, etc. But I clearly remember in the 80s, you know, there were a lot more Indian people moving in, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and we've all been kind of working together, living together. And, you know, oftentimes too, we forget about the Filipino community. They've been in the area for generations. I remember going to St. Sebastian's. I mean, I graduated from 8th grade in 1981. And, you know, we had people from South America, Philippines, Koreans. So the concept that our neighborhoods are not fully integrated is not one that I'm familiar with because I believe the same holds true for Sunnyside. Now, Long Island City is its own character, if you will, because many years ago there was not much there. There was no development. It was kind of like these dilapidated piers. And then there was some revitalization, but it's only been in the last 10 years that it's really taken off. But I think that we need to do better for our kids as far as providing them with more schools in general. You know, I think there's limited schools currently. I mean, one that stands out to me is PS 78. A couple of years ago, they wanted to bus some of the children that were currently going to PS 78 to the former St. Teresa's school site in Woodside. And I was very much involved in that with Dr. Composto in preventing that from happening, that children should be able to stay in their local areas without having to be bused further away. It was going to be very inconvenient for the parents, just in case something happened and they had to get to the school. You know, St. Teresa's a little bit farther away and it's not as easily accessible by train. It's a bit of a walk from the train station. But I think that we just continue to integrate all of our kids together. I mean, we're a great community. I mean, I think what makes us so special and different is that we are so special and different. You know, our people, it's our people. And, you know, regardless of backgrounds, we're always able to come together. We enjoy each other's cultures. You know, we benefit from each other's cultures. We learn from each other. And I've had all great experiences in all three neighborhoods. But I hope that the children continue to benefit from that because I think we need more schools. I know that you guys are working on 384 down there in Long Island City. I know it's been delayed, but I think things will start getting back to normal once we pass the COVID situation.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So just two more questions. You know, when Court Square was first envisioned, and you mentioned this, it was meant to be a commercial area, an extension of Midtown East. However, the developments end up being a lot of large residential high rises, as we know now. Today, Court Square is being positioned as a mixed use neighborhood with significant commercial development buildings like the Jax, which is a 1 million square foot office space, a new bio life science building, and the Citibank Altice Tower still in place. What are your perspectives on diversifying the building mixes or commercial businesses, specifically within Court Square, and if applicable, with what government policy, tools, or incentives or otherwise?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no problem. Yeah. So when Court Square was first envisioned, it was meant to be a commercial area, an
Right.
extension of Midtown East. However, it ended up being largely residential. Today, Court Square is really being positioned as a mixed use neighborhood with commercial development buildings coming up in place, like the Jax. It's a large new office building. And so the question is, what are your perspectives on helping to diversify the business mixes, like commercial businesses within Court Square? And then if applicable, with what government tools, policies, or incentives to attract businesses within Court Square?
Okay, well, I think we need to look at what's there now, right? Evaluate that, and what potential businesses would be beneficial to the neighborhood. And oftentimes, you could just simply ask people that live there, what would you like to see? What do you think is important? I think you take a community approach to it. And, I agree, Court Square kind of grew out of control very quickly. And it was stimulated by the continuous rezonings from the early 2000s until I think the last one was about 2012 or 2013. To build extensions of current businesses within Midtown Manhattan, I think is beneficial. It would certainly alleviate transportation issues. It would take people off our trains that have to get to work every day. But I would really prefer to see more independent-owned businesses in the area. I know for a long time there was no supermarket at all. I know that a lot of the people that lived there previously they were using Fresh Direct to even get their groceries. I'm happy to see that there's more of a community feel within Court Square over the last few years. And again, I would really look to bring smaller independent-owned businesses, offer them, as we saw with Amazon. I know it's hard to talk about still to some degree, but the reason why they wanted to come to Queens was because of the tax incentives. And I know that there's a proposal to eliminate them or minimize the tax incentives for people coming into the outer boroughs. I don't really know that that's the right approach because we want to support industry. I would love to see more artist space, in that area. Besides the education, you have CUNY Law School right there, and some restaurants, but I think we could do even more. And I think it would really be a great opportunity for everyone. But whenever it comes to community changes and the impact of them, I always strongly believe that we should actually sit down and have a conversation with organizations like yourself and other civic organizations or anyone else that could potentially be interested. You could do it through the community boards as well.
Perfect. So the last question is, and I know this question was asked in March at the time, but the question was really, who is your number 2 ranked choice vote within the city council election? I know in March at the time, you were still kind of learning about the other candidates. And if you don't have a choice today, that's still okay. The extra bonus question is, can you let us know who your ranked choice vote would be for the next mayor of New York City? I think people would like to know answers to both. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I have not decided on a second, and I'll tell you why, Frank. Because I feel more and more conversations or candidate forums that I attend, I really see myself in my own lane. I'm really not like I'm really not like a lot of the other candidates in that I actually grew up here. I've lived here most of my life. We go back generations, my family. And I have extensive community leadership experience with Woodside, Sunnyside, Long Island City. I think I live in a Mitchell Lama limited equity co-op in Woodside. I was the previous president about 10 and 11 years ago, somewhere around there. And, I've had a lot of interactions with a lot of different people. I have the experience where I don't know that the others have. I don't think I know them well enough at this point. But as far as, our initiatives, I know that I think we're all across the board. We all believe in creating more affordable housing. I don't know if you know, I wrote an op-ed why affordable housing is not really affordable in the Sunnyside Post, Queens Post. We all want to revitalize small business. I think the one standout that I have brought up that I don't hear from anyone else, and we just had a candidate forum last night and the night before, were my concern about improving public safety. You know, in my opinion, if we don't have public safety, there's really not much more, there's really not much we can do. You know, people are afraid to go out, people are afraid to ride the trains and the buses. And, you know, our elderly are being victimized. We're having a lot of hate crimes that anti-Asian. And I think that it's something that we need to address it. You know, we need to sit down and talk about how do we improve relationships with the NYPD, how do we better police our communities, and you know, create a safer environment for everyone. You know, and I'm surprised, to be honest with you, that I'm the only one that talks about it. And I think it's because you know, I'm a leader and I'm not afraid of the subject. I think we have to face it head on. I think it's something we have to talk about. We all want to live together peacefully. Everybody wants to be able to, you know, be free to walk around, not be fear of being pushed on a subway track. You know, I never before did I ever feel this way, having been born and raised here. And then as far as the mayor's race is concerned, I'm leaning towards Eric Adams and Catherine Garcia. Those are the two that I'm looking at right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Denise.